everyone, it's Elaine. Thanks for joining me back on my channel. Today I'm just sharing some thank you cards that I made mainly to give to teachers in my son's class. So I've taken a piece of just Neenah Classic Crest cardstock and I'm using my Spun Sugar Distress ink to get some colour down on this A2 sized piece of card. I'm just keeping the centre clear of colour, but because I'm going to fill that patch in a minute, but I'm just trying to get that colour down all around the edges. And then I'm going to take my Perfect Pearls in the colour bronze, put some water down on my mat, and then I'm going to mix that powder with the water, and then I'm just going to be splattering that onto my card base that I've inked up. It looks very pale on the screen, and I do think my Spun Sugar ink pad is drying out a little bit, but I promise you there is some colour on there. And I'm just doing some fairly small ink splatters. I want it to be quite subtle, but also to catch the light and give it, a little bit of texture and break up that pale pink a little bit. So just getting that down with just a paintbrush. And these are some dies that I got from a shop called The Works here in the UK. They're just some nice stitched scalloped oval. I don't have many oval shaped dies in my stash, so I picked them up fairly cheaply, and I'm just using that as a guide. I'm going to draw a pencil line around the outside of that just to help me work out where I'm going to put my colour, because I'm going to do a little bit of a scene. So I am using my Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to be creating 2 cards. I didn't plan on 2 cards, but I decided I might as well make 2 cards. So this green patch at the bottom is going to be my grassy hill. I'm now just tapping on some water just to give it a bit of texture. And then I've done another one of those ovals, and I'm now going to create some cloudy backgrounds using my MFT Cloudy Stencil, or Cloud Stencil, yeah, Cloud Stencil. And then I'm going to be using that oval, putting that through my Big Shot machine, and there I have my panels, and I'm using my Lawn Fawn stitched grassy hillside borders, I believe, and again running them through my Big Shot machine, excuse me, and just putting my little scene together, making sure I'm happy with how it's looking. I'm happy with that. So now I'm just going to cut out that panel with a die from Waffle Flower, the Lacy Layers rectangle. It's the largest one in that set and has some nice little dotting detail around the edge. And then I'm just using some foam tape to prop up my little grassy border, just removing that release paper. And then lining that up. Now this is the stamp set I've used. It's the Mama Elephant Pixie's Favourite. And I've just got a couple of bunnies that I've stamped out previously, and I'm using my Copic Markers to colour these in. Really simple colouring. I don't think I really worry too much about how perfectly blending everything. Haven't had a lot of time this week, so I just really needed to get these bunnies coloured. I'm using my W's for these bunnies, and I just do it, try and do it really quickly. I do leave the caps to show you what colours I'm using. I'll try and list them all down in the description box below as well if you miss anything. I do use the tip to tip method a few times in this video. I did have a little bit of a problem blending some of the colours. They seemed quite far apart in terms of the colour I was getting on the paper, so you'll see me do that in a minute. There we go. I'm using RV02 and RV00, and I sometimes do think that they don't always blend that well. But maybe it's just me. That's B00 and BG01, I believe. I don't have the label on some of my chow caps, so... So using some of the same colours for these bunnies. They're not going to be obviously going to the same people, so I was just trying to keep it really simple. And I love this little one holding the plant. I think she's really cute. And I love this blue colour combination as well. It's one of my favourites. It's really pretty. Again, sometimes have problems blending those two colours, even though I like them together. And just colouring in that little plant pot. Again, just using some of my B colours for the collar. Colouring in the little plant. And I'm using my black jelly roll pen for the eyes and some white gel pen for the cheeks. So I've kept this bit in with the sentiment. I'm using my Misti tool for this, and the sentiment is from MFT Some Bunny because I couldn't at the time find the stamp set for Pixie's favourites, but I put the sentiment down, used some copper embossing powder, but when I look at it, I decided that it actually was wonky and I couldn't fix it, so I just thought I'd keep that in to show you what I actually do to try and salvage my card. So I stamp out the sentiment with Versamark ink on some black cardstock, use some Nuvo white embossing powder, and then I'm heat setting that and just trimming it down with my Guillotine trimmer. And here I just use that same rectangle die from Waffle Flower so that it gives the same dotting detail around the edges, and just putting some double-sided tape on the back of that and using my tweezers to get the release paper off, and then I shall be popping that down on my card to cover up that area where my sentiment didn't quite work out as I had hoped. Now I'm just going to get my scene panel, use my Nuvo liquid adhesive and secure that down onto my card base. Just using this wide tipped Nuvo glue pen just to stick down those scalloped edges, because I don't like it when they don't look stuck down to the card. It really bugs me. But yeah, I don't really want glue oozing out the side, so I find that glue pen quite useful. So I've moved on to a different card here. It's exactly the same, but the paper in the background is a pastel pink polka dot paper from Sugar Pea Designs. I'm using my embossing buddy here and using my Versafine Onyx Black ink to stamp out the sentiment from Pixie's Favourites, the thank you. You would have seen this in my card that I made last week. I can link that below. I'm completely out of frame, but I'm using clear embossing powder to coat that and using my heat tool to set that. Now I decided to do a dimensional sentiment, so I'm taking some Stick It. I peel off the release paper and stick that down to some foam tape, and then I cut that out. And then I take off the release paper from the other side and stick that face down onto some cardstock. And then I just trim off that excess. I take my Sugar Pea Designs teacher die, which I really like, and I use it a lot because it's the only one I've got. And I take some Shaded Lilac Distress ink, and I just want to ink up the bottom of that sentiment. And then I take in my blueprint sketch just to darken that up a little. And I remove that from the die, from all its backing pieces. And then I glue that down onto my card base using just some liquid adhesive. And I'm covering that back panel this time with some double-sided tape. I put some foam tape on the back of my bunnies. And place them down on my card. And then I do my bunny for the other card. I don't put any foam tape on her legs because I want to place her on top of that hill which already has foam tape on. And I take my card bases, which are A2 sized card bases, and I just use some liquid adhesive to secure those to the card base. And I do that for both of my cards. And then for some final glitter and sparkle, I take my Nuvo sparkle pen. And as a final bit of embellishment, I've got some little dabs of glue and using these Martha Stewart stars in clear iridescence. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment below and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!